I don't know. I mean, honestly, Dante wanted to meet his great-great-grandfather. If I would meet somebody today, it would be Dante. Actually, I want to be like meeting him and asking him a bunch of questions. How could you do it? How could you keep everything together? It's just...
Hello everybody, this is Tom in Los Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Very excited today. I have back one of my guest stars of this channel, Chiara Mariani. She's been already helping me with previous cantos and videos, and she will help us today read through Canto 17 of Paradiso. Chiara, first of all, welcome and thank you very much for being here. Could I ask you, maybe for the viewers who haven't really seen, maybe they're the first time who are joining this channel, to introduce you briefly?
Yes, of course. And thank you very much, Tom, for inviting me again. I had such a great time commenting Paradiso, Purgatorio 30. We did it last time. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. Now, I'm going to introduce myself very briefly. I'm an assistant professor of Italian at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And I love Dante. This is not my actual research field. I research cinema and television and theater, but Dante was my first love. Last time I told you that when I was 9 years old, very symbolic, my maestro in elementary school taught us Inferno, and I had to memorize a lot of terzine, and I was just a little girl, and I'm like, I just love it. I want to read the whole comedy. And of course, I didn't read it, the whole comedy when I was 9, but slowly. And now every time I read it, I find something else that it's just relevant for me, and it's a magical book. That's what I wanted to call it today. So thank you.
It is full of magic. Thank you so much, Chiara. It is full of magic, and it's. I love the fact that you're also studying cinema and the history of cinema, because if there's something that Dante would love if he traveled through time about our age, is actually cinema. He would go crazy with some.
I believe so too. This is great. Yeah, he's going to be a great director, I believe. Yeah. Yes.
So Canto 17, I mean, we both know that Canto 17 is one of really the best of the entire Divine Comedy, and one of the best of the Commedia. It's also a canto that includes maybe at least 3 or 4 of the historic tercets or historic quotes that everybody repeats in Italy when it comes to the Divine Comedy. So we're going to highlight that.
Yes.
But may I ask you to maybe start by giving, if somebody doesn't know where we are in Paradiso, a quick context, of the beginning, and so we start from there.
Of course, I'd be happy to. Now, we are in Heaven of Mars, the Heaven of Mars, and this is actually the last canto we had. We met Cacciaguida, the main character of this canto. We met it in Paradiso 15, 16, and 17. This is a trilogy dedicated to the great-great-grandfather of Dante, Cacciaguida. Now, the Heaven of Mars is the heaven dedicated to the soldiers of faith. So martyrs, those who died to preserve the faith. So Cacciaguida, Dante's great-great-grandfather, died in a crusade. So that's why he's in the Heaven of Mars. And then, I'm going to introduce the topic in a minute, but I just wanted to tell you that this is one of the pivotal moments in the Commedia, because in this canto, a little, anticipation, Dante is going to have he's going to know for sure, for certain, that he will go in exile. Well, of course, we know that Dante is in exile when he's writing the Commedia, but since he set the Commedia in 1300, he can actually use this prophecy as a prophecy, but Dante was already living the hard time of exile. So it's very exciting to know how Cacciaguida reveals that really hard moment for Dante, how he receives it, how he absorbs it, how he accepts it. So this is what we're going to see in a few minutes here.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think this is also the reason why Dante chose to to, you know, this canto, to put it in the center of the Cantica of the Paradiso, because 17 is really has 16 cantos before and 16 cantos after, and it's right there.
I think so. A lot of commentators actually argue that too, that it's at the center of the Paradiso, you know, because it's the climax of that. Well, if we want to just be honest here, it's why Dante wrote the Commedia, because if he didn't go to exile, maybe the Commedia, we wouldn't be reading it today.
Absolutely.
So how the main, like, basically, this is why we are reading the Commedia today, because of his exile. So yes, it is at the center of Paradiso, and it's very hard for Dante to write about it, and we see that the anguish, but it's actually, he's gonna learn today, well, in this canto, he's gonna learn in this canto 17 that thanks to the exile, he will have to write the Commedia. So today he'll have this mission from great-grandfather to write it.
So highly sensitive topic for Dante, probably maybe the most sensitive for his life, because in this canto he's going to tell us about his destiny, his fate. Yes. He's going to tell us, you know, the meaning of his life, basically, from his own Christian point of view. Yes. And also he's going to tell us the meaning of the Divine Comedy. As a mission for him, correct? We're going to have St. Peter later in Paradiso reinforcing and highlighting this role, but this is really the point where the reader has this message articulated properly, no? Yes,
it's actually, this canto is the poetic investiture. We would say, you know, going back to that language of chivalry. So he's going to be invested to write the Divine Comedy. And as Cacciaguida was a crusader, so he was pretty much he was safeguarding faith. He's going to be a martyr. He's going to safeguard his poetical mission by writing the Divine Comedy. So he's going to have that kind of mission in his life. He's going to be a crusader, a martyr, but he's going to write it. He's going to be a crusader with his pen, not with a sword. So, but they have the same kind of like a mission, right? Cacciaguida and Dante. And it's so important also because Dante, through Cacciaguida, gets this kind of like nobility. Dante really wanted to be noble. He wasn't noble, but now since Cacciaguida was a soldier for faith, he went to the crusader, he's going to get that nobility too in him. So this is
I love what you said about you know, fighting with a pen, fighting with his own craft, which is part of the mission that Dante felt about himself. So it's so we've read Canto 15 and 16, where in 15 Cacciaguida, in 15 basically we have Dante looking back at how the good old times, and everything was great in Florence.
Yeah.
In 16, the focus was on how bad Florence is in the moral corruption.
Yes.
And maybe 17 can be read. It's a question I ask you, in your opinion, do you think we can read 17 almost as a synthesis of this triptych of these three cantos?
Wonderful. I like that synthesis. So we have the thesis, antithesis, and the synthesis. Yes. What is the solution? The solution is Dante needs to go to exile, but there's something big for him. There's a bigger plan. So I know it's going to be really hard for him to go down and up the stairs of other people's houses. He needs to beg for shelter and food or whatever. But let's look at the positive side of his exile. He can write about what he saw down in hell and purgatory and can better society. That's the mission of Dante. He needs to write the Divine Comedy to tell people, look, yes, you can sin. It's okay. We understand. We all sin. We all make mistakes. But if you purge yourself, if you go up the stairs of the cornice of purgatory, you can go up to paradise and see God, you know, enjoy the vision of God. So that's why he has to do that. And so the exile, even if it's a terrible experience for Dante, is going to have a positive outcome, not only for Dante, but for everybody, for us, that we're reading the Divine Comedy 700 years later, and we're still learning and we're still enjoying it. And it's still relevant, right, for what's happening today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost weird to me because I always go back to Canto I of Inferno, and I think even there he said in year 1300, he said, I was in the middle of the journey of my life, and I was in the dark wood. But from the external point of view, if somebody contemporary would have looked at Dante in his life, he was doing well, because he was before exile. He was one of the most prominent people in Florence. He was pretty wealthy overall, not crazy wealthy, but okay. And he was really doing well. But from the distance, he looks at himself there and he says, I was in a dark wood. While the opposite happens later. Later, he is a loser in reality, from the external reality. He's a complete loser because he's lost everything. But from what matters point of view, from the his own,
for the existential point of view,
he is really winning. He's winning the game of spiritual growth and understanding of his role in life.
Exactly. And this is a very good, it's a teaching for us too. It's so relevant. It's a message for us, because we can have everything we want, we can be famous, wealthy, and whatever, but then inside of us we're like rotting for a bunch of, so it is like Dante is teaching us, like, pause a minute, reflect on your life. Is it really going well? Maybe not.
It's not easy. But so when we I read some scholar, in particular, I think he was Chiavacci, who is a really great one, Italian scholar, who, when she was talking about Canto 17, she said, we can look at it divided in three parts. The first is more theological, then a middle part that is historical, and then the final part, which is prophetic.
Right.
Do you agree with this type of division?
Yes, I agree. That's a great way to analyze a canto, to divide, to structure the canto, right? And then, of course, Dante, it's not complete. He has a structure, but he's sometimes in the 13, and we see something different going on. But as a main layout, I would agree with her. Yeah. Definitely. And but the first part of the canto, the first half, pretty much, it's setting like the scene. I like to see I like to like identify like setting the scene. So at the beginning, Dante compares himself with Phaeton, Phaetonte. Sorry about the English. No, I
think it's I think you said it right. It's Phaeton.
Yes, Phaeton, Phaetonte. Yes, and that's interesting, because we talked last time about how Dante structured Divine Comedy also horizontally. And if we remember, I know it's hard, but Inferno 17 had actually another little, is referring to Phaeton.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Yes, when he's on top of Geryon, he's going down, he's so scared. It's like, I'm scared of Phaeton one when he was driving the chariot of the sun and whatnot. And
how did he do that? This is a question that maybe doesn't have an answer, but how did he do that? Did he keep everything in his mind, or was there a team of 250 people who kept all these notes for him? How is it possible?
I mean, I know, I think there are so many mysteries around the comedy, we will never know. Dante was like I think it was like a computer. He could remember everything.
Exactly.
But I think he had all the manuscript around, whatever. But if you think about it, he moved so much during the exile, so he had to keep everything in order. I don't know. I mean, honestly, Dante wanted to meet his great-great-grandfather. If I would meet somebody today, it would be Dante. Actually, I want to be like meeting him and ask him a bunch of questions. How could you do it? How could you keep everything together? It's just so great.
Give us the secret, right? And so Phaeton, why is he quoting Phaeton at the very beginning then?
Yes, for a different reason, not because of the chariot, but Phaeton had a doubt. He heard rumors when he was, people were saying, Phaeton, your father is not Ilias, it's not Apollos. You are like a bastard. So you need to be sure that you're asking your mother, who's your father? So Phaeton was so in anxiety, anxious, and he went to Clymene and asked her, so can you really please tell me, this is important for me, is Apollos my father? And Clemente said yes. And then we know that he went to Apollos and he wanted to ride a chariot to be sure that he was his father, that he got that in his DNA pretty much, and then a disaster happened because Zeus basically killed him because he was going to
he was messing up the sun, right?
He was messing up everything anyway.
Yes.
So, but now Dante is referring to this myth that is in Ovid, by the way. So, not because of the chariot, because it feels like Phaeton, because when he was in Inferno and Purgatory, he heard a lot of people say, Dante, be careful, because I know everything is perfect now for you, but bad stuff is going to happen to you and you need to be prepared. And so Dante is getting kind of anxious. So, and he wants to ask this question to Cacciaguida because he knows that all the souls in heaven can basically, they know the future because they can see into what basically looking at God, they actually know the future. So basically,
yes,
they have
all the contingent reality, present and future. Yes. Only as a parenthesis, these comments I'm reading for my notes. He kept hearing in Inferno 10, for example, Farinata, tu saprai quanto quell'arte pesa. You will know how much this art of returning or not be able to return to your town is heavy. Inferno 15. Brunetto Latini, also, but none, like you say, none of these were very clear.
No, they were very confusing. And Dante said, can you tell me like clearly, like in a way I can understand, because I'm kind of confused. I don't know what they said. And then also in Canto 24 of Inferno, Vanni Fucci, he said something to Dante, but he said at the end, when he said, Dante, you're gonna like experience horrible things in life, and I'm gonna tell you so that you can suffer, because it's me. So Dante doesn't know if the souls are telling me just to hurt him or because it's gonna be, so he does not. And then in Purgatory, there's Conrad Malaspina in Canto 8, and Oderisi also mentions the exile, and Bonaggiunta da Lucca. So I'm like,
I'm starting to, he's thinking there is some kind of common theme, and so he wants, he wants clarification.
Exactly, and he said, can you please tell me? And it's beautiful the way he addresses to Cacciaguida, because he say, "O cara Piota Mia, che tu t'insusi," in English would be, "Oh my dear root." So that's important because Cacciaguida, his great-grandfather, is a root. It's like what determines his being, his identity. So please tell me, help me, because I don't know, I'm worried about this and I need to know. And now Cacciaguida says that, yes, I can tell you because we can see the future. And I'm going to just tell you as clear as possible. And he says in Latino, clear, no, in Latin means that in a clear language. That's
clear language, right.
Yes, in Latin. And now lines 55 to 60 are the most beautiful, I think, lines that I don't want to say the Divine Comedy because then I'm going to read another, I'm going to say, but I'm just going to have to read it if I may, Tom, in Italian. The musicalities just give me chills every time.
Yeah, I think our viewers would like that, you know. I also would be very happy to hear it read in Italian if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm going to read it. This is what Cacciaguida tells Dante. Basically the revelation, the prophecy of his exile. So he says, tu lascerai ogni cosa diletta più caramente, e questo è quello strale che l'arco dello esilio pria saetta. Exile, esilio. Tu proverai sì come sa di sale lo pane altrui, e come duro calle lo scendere e il salire per l'altrui scale. It gives me chills and almost crying now because it's so beautiful. So it's basically going to say, you shall leave everything you love most dearly behind. You're going to leave your town. You're going to leave your beloved Florence. And that is the arrow that the bow of exile should first. You are to know the bitter taste of others' bread, how salt it is, and know how hard a patch it is for one who goes descending is important, and ascending other stairs. Now, I love those words because, you know, and you are too, we left our country. I left it 20 years, 15 years ago more. And I remember when I came to America, nothing tastes the same. You know, I remember actually desserts would taste more sugary, and I didn't like it anyway. So I'm like, when I'm reading those lines a few years ago, I'm like, yeah, Dante, I understand what you felt, I understand the pain, but I actually decided to leave. So we can even imagine what it means to be thrown away from your country, for your city, and unjustly, because Dante didn't have any fault. And that's what I thought. But now, a few weeks ago, we all know, in this moment of history, we have this horrible war in Ukraine, and it made me like think about, look, that's what they feel. They left everything dear to them unjustly. One day they were told, you have to go, so they packed a bag and left, and now they're in Italy, all around Europe. They don't know if they're going to go back. Dante never went back. I hope they can go back. And it's so painful. It's so painful. And that's why Dante is a prophet today. Will be a prophet like in a century, because those stuff happened in the past. It happens today, but we should learn better that it's not fair.
Oh yeah.
To tell a person, just leave your country, leave your city. We are not wanted. And for Dante, it was very hard. And at this point, when he was writing this canto, probably he knew he can never go back, right? Because at the beginning of the Commedia, he was hoping about every day, Arrigo Settimo, he was hoping that he could go back, but at this point, he knew.
Oh yeah.
And we can actually feel, we can actually sense his pain when he was right. Can you sense his pain when you read those?
Oh, 100%. And even I feel this is really Dante's genius, the fact that in 2 tercets, exactly the ones that you read, he has compressed all this pain. And isn't it almost strange how the sense that he uses is that of taste, our taste, because with our memories, we can remember all the different senses, we can remember the sights, but he touches on a very intimate, very personal one, which is taste. And
taste. Oh, it's so important. Tom, I'm sorry I'm interrupting. It's so great what you're saying, because sometimes I miss my country so much. I miss my city, and I know if I taste that type of fish, because I live on the coast in Italy, for a split second, I have this image of me with my family having dinner and yes, taste connects us to places, connects us to people. This is what
it's almost a more direct highway to our heart. This is why we can go around the world, and a smell could make us cry all of a sudden, or a taste could make us cry, because it really touches our heart so directly. It's incredible how really there's no better way to say it. Come sa di sale lo pane altrui is a very specific thing, by the way, because it means that he was used to a type of bread that didn't have as much salt, as simple as that. Like you said, the desserts in America are different from desserts in Italy. This is very specific, but it's very subconscious. We don't rationalize it. Our heart feels it before we can actually rationalize it. And obviously, like we were saying, one thing is being away from our homes, like us, in a voluntary way, and then obviously an exile is a completely different level of missing a place that you cannot go back anymore, like today, Ukrainian and all over history, immigrants of all, refugees of all kinds. And so certainly our thoughts go to this contemporary, but like you said, it's so universal. It's so universal.
We have migrant crisis throughout history. We have it in Italy, and every year. It's just so contemporary, and Dante is touching our hearts. I think when we read those terzine, it's touching and it's telling us, this is the pain I felt. Let's not do it. Or if they have to leave their country because maybe they find better opportunities in Italy, let them feel welcome. Like I was welcomed by Bartolomeo della Scala, and he had a lot of
his benefactors. Yeah.
At least, if like we have to leave because for whatever, then let's help them. So I think that Dante is giving us a great advice, and he's a guide. He's our guide, right? Like,
he's our Virgil. He's our Virgil.
Yes.
Now, Chiara, correct me if I'm wrong, but from the historic point of view, what I know about Dante's exile story, very, very briefly, is that in 1301, around 1301, he was one of the most prominent people in Florence, and he was sent with a delegation, political delegation, to go to Rome to talk to Pope Boniface VIII, in favor to kind of, let's say, bring some favor to the political cause of the white Guelphs, because that was his own party, the white Guelphs. Then the other two of this delegation of three went back to Florence, and Dante remained in Rome by himself, still talking with Boniface VIII. And can you just imagine those moments, right? And then when he started going back to Florence, a letter came to him along that said, you have been accused of corruption. You have 48 hours to pay this fine. If you don't pay, you're going to be exiled. If you present yourself in Florence, you're going to get burned on the stake, and your children are going to be burned. This was the crucial, terrible moment, correct?
Yes, this is exactly what happened. So he didn't even go back to Florence. So he went to this delegation and this great political task that he had to do, and he couldn't go back because, of course, the Pope Boniface VIII was actually supporting the black
Guelphs. Right.
And so he kicked all the white Guelph out of Florence for no reason, really. So that's why Dante was, so he couldn't even go back. He couldn't even pack his stuff, if we want to just practically describe it. And that was even harder for Dante. And he tried to actually go back. He tried, but some attempts failed. And that's what actually Cacciaguida is going to tell us in a little bit, in the next few terzine. He's going to say, look, don't worry about it, because you cannot trust your friends. Because in fact, some of his friends tried to go back in Florence and were killed in the last war. It was horrible. And Cacciaguida tells him, eventually you'll learn that you have to be a party of yourself. So you're going to be the only one you can count on. Don't count on anybody, because you're going to be the party. The only party is going to be yourself.
So in the beginning, he was still part of the exiled white Guelphs, and he participated to the very first attempts to go back, or to maybe march on Florence again, or something military. But then something happened, and he detached himself from those people, and he became just party of himself, right? Part of
himself. He says, parte per te stesso. You're going to become a part on your own, and it's going to be better for you, because there will be no way. Those attempts are going to be just bloodshed.
He calls the other white Guelphs la compagnia malvagia e scempia. This is verse 62. So ingrata, matta ed empia. So he certainly didn't like these people. They were maybe ignorant, or they were not following a proper plan, and so
in fact, it's going to say ella non tu n'avrà rossa la tempia. So like the tempia is this part of the head, but maybe means they would be so ashamed because what they did, it was inappropriate, or there would be blood everywhere. We don't know, but definitely he needs to detach from that compagnia. Company is not for him, so he'll be better off to be on his own, and that's what he does.
I wanted to only touch for 1 second on going back to verse 46. Dante mentions Ippolito d'Atene, which is just interesting, because it's the second example from the classical myths of somebody who, just like Phaeton, is very troubled about his origin, right?
Yes, and he was unjustly actually exiled, kicked out from Athens. Well, briefly, what is the story of Hippolytus? Hippolytus was forced to leave Athens because his stepmother, Phaedra, basically fell in love with him. So fell in love with him, and Phaedra, when Theseus left Athens, Phaedra kind of told Hippolytus, I have feelings for you, can we do that? And Hippolytus said, no, I won't do anything.
No, thank you.
So Phaedra got kind of offended in her like, oh, or whatever. So she told Theseus, her husband, that actually Hippolytus tried to advance
to harass her. Yes,
sexual harassment, exactly. And he was kicked out of Athens forever. And well, this is one version of the myth, you know, some other myths say other things, but anyway, then Phaedra killed herself. But anyway, the idea here is that Dante, as Hippolytus, was unjustly condemned, or
by his mother, there was Florence.
Yes, because Florence becomes stepmother's mother. So this is really painful. And actually Athens now is at the same level of Florence. You know, that's another parallelism that commentators draw. But the idea is that unjustly accused of something that he didn't do, like Hippolytus. And that's it really hurts, because, you know, if you do something bad and you have to pay, it's okay. But Dante knows that he didn't do anything wrong. He wanted to actually help his city by going to talk to the Pope. But anyway, but
I think I read somewhere that some other people actually accepted this unjust accusation, paid the money, and were allowed to go back to Florence. But for Dante, it was a matter of principle. Maybe he was a little more rigid, whatever, but he didn't want to say, you know, to admit he did something he didn't do.
No, he wanted a public, he wanted to be publicly be told that they were sorry for what they did to him.
Yes.
So they needed to have this public, like, you say, like, they needed to say publicly, sorry, Dante, you didn't do it. We unjustly send you to exile. And they didn't want to do it because, you know, we hurt their honor. And then they said, no, I'm not coming back. You have to apologize to me because I was wronged and I'm not coming back. So, you know, Dante was also his pride. He knows he has pride a little, you know, he needs to
I think it's the great point that Cacciaguida makes to him here in the third and last part, which is, like you were mentioning before, you shouldn't be afraid of being a friend of the truth. Even if it's very uncomfortable, it's the right direction for you to take. And he mentions Gran Lombardo. There was one of his benefactors, Bartolomeo della Scala. And then he does something of a maybe celebration of Can Grande della Scala, who was here, please correct me, but didn't he dedicate Paradiso to Can Grande della Scala?
The Epistola, the letter to Can Grande della Scala, the Paradise, is dedicated to him. He was a great benefactor to Dante. And we know for sure it's Can Grande because he, in a Terzina, he says that he was 9 when he was writing. In 1300, Can Grande was 9, and in fact he was 9 because he was born.
That's right. So 79 verse 80, per la novella età che pur 9 anni son queste rote intorno di lui torte. In the 1300, the year of fiction, of the Divine Comedy, Can Grande was 9.
9, yes. He had a lot of hope for Can Grande. Unfortunately, Can Grande died young, a few years after Dante. So Dante doesn't know that Can Grande cannot really help the Italian situation and all that, but he had a lot of hopes on Can Grande. And it's important you mention that because Dante at one point, he asked for an advice. He tells Cacciaguida, look, now I know I have to go to exile and I've seen so many horrible things. I've seen people rotting in hell, like popes and all those, you know, people from important families. I don't want to alienate them because I might need them. So what should I do?
Exactly. Yes.
That's what you're saying, the truth. And Cacciaguida said, you have to tell the truth. And it doesn't matter And the most beautiful lines, I think, it's the grattar la rogna. Let me find it. Let me see.
Yeah, you're right. Very strong line.
Very strong lines. And
129.
Okay, 129. That's really great. He said, ma non di men rimossa ogni menzogna, so all falsehood set aside, tutta tua visione fa manifesta. Let all that you have seen be manifest. Tell the truth. E lascia pur grattar dov'è la rogna, and let them scratch where it might itch. How great is that? You know, when you're thinking about when you're itching, it hurting, you know, if they're reading something that they don't like, they know that they did something wrong. They're family members, and they're going to learn. So let them scratch where they itch, because if you're going to tell the truth, you're going to be remembered. If you don't, then people are going to stay miserable. They're never going to learn. And it's such a great message for us too. You know, if somebody like wrong us, we need to tell them, look, you shouldn't behave like, you should actually do good instead of bad. And if we don't say anything, they're never going to better.
Yeah, there's a very, let's say, fundamental but also difficult lesson of wisdom, but I think it's part of Christianity as well. The charitable correction of your brothers and sisters. And how do you do that when you're faced with the fear of breaking the relationship? It's not easy, but exactly like that, in a lot of people, especially readers today who read only Inferno, simplistically think, oh, this is a guy who just put in Inferno everybody who he didn't like. That's it. No, it's not like that at all. He was seeking the truth and trying to speak the truth in the best way that he was able to. No?
Yes, and truth is uncomfortable sometimes, but you know, it's uncomfortable, but at the same time we need to know it, because if we know it, then we can actually change it and do good for others and for ourselves. That's what Dante is saying. And you know what it did? You know, we're reading the Divine Comedy 700 years ago, and we're finding our reality, our contemporary history in its terzine.
Completely.
So how great is that? Probably if you didn't have said the truth, maybe that wouldn't be so relevant today, right?
Yeah.
So,
I can tell you, I love those tercets that you read, Chiara. Maybe as a personal preference, maybe my favorite tercet of this canto is at verse 133. Questo tuo grido farà come vento. And here is really the point about the meaning of the Divine Comedy, the sense of his mission as lo scriba di Dio, the scribe of God. You want to comment a little bit about why he's talking about the wind hitting more the top of the tallest trees compared to this, because the wind is moving the tallest trees more than the smallest, right? And it always makes me think about marketing, because he was a great marketing guy as well. He knows that if you want to convince people, you shouldn't talk about unknown characters and people. You should talk about the most famous, the most important, no?
It's like the shock effect, right?
The shock effect.
Yeah, the shock effect. So if you're like, wow, he's like, the wind is, goes again, like hits, kind of blows against the highest peaks. So if we attack like a famous person, we'll remember that, and we're going to learn better if, we are just talking about nobody that nobody knows, like a person nobody knows. So that's why it's shocking us, and that's what the Divine Comedy does to us. He's putting in hell like popes and all those important people. Yes, we're going to, wow.
We're going to listen. Yes.
We are definitely going to listen. If he puts me in hell, nobody's going to care. Nobody knows. So this is great. And he wasn't fearing anything. It's just his strength. Even despite everything he was living, we all sometimes we forget to remember that Dante was in a very difficult moment in his life, and he could be dishonest. So why can't we be that honest too? So yeah, I think about this stuff.
This is part of his, like many people in history who then became officially saints. Dante has a certain intransigence when it comes to morals and values, and this is something, you know, we love about him, because he sets such an example from a moral point of view. Whenever I read this tercet as well, I also have the feeling that there is another meaning that we can interpret it in, which is: questo tuo grido farà come vento che le tue alte cime percuote. You are screaming out, and definitely Dante is screaming. I mean, the Divine Comedy is a scream, right?
Yeah.
And you hit the highest peaks of the trees. In a certain sense, he might also be saying that he might also be talking to his future readers, and to say, almost like he was saying in Canto 1 and 2 of Paradiso, my entire message, if you are open and ready to make it yours in your life, you are part of the highest people from the point of view of people who are trying to be the best they can be, morally, the best they can be, also maybe intellectually, and the best they can be from a behavior in their life. Would you not, do you think?
I definitely agree. You know, you can better yourself. You can become a better version of yourself if you scream out the truth, if you're honest with yourself, and you're not afraid to do that. And this is what the wind does. You know, the wind, when it goes everywhere, and it's a consistent like noise, and like, that's what we have to do. We have to consistently let out our fears and talk with other people to better them, because that's how we change society. If we don't do that, nobody's going to change, and we're going to be the same as we were like 1,000 years ago.
This is the crazy thing, you know. So many people today complain about politics and politicians on one side, on the other, and it's the same in every country, you know, because we know Italy, United States, and you know, before complaining, criticizing, you should try to do something yourself in your little individual life. At least this is what Dante is telling us to do, because we look at Canto 15, 16, and 17, like you said, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Okay, there was a time when we were doing actually a little better, okay? Let's be realistic. It wasn't idyllic, but let's be realistic. We were doing a little better as a people. Then we look at today, and it's a disaster. It's a disaster. Politicians don't care. All they care about is getting rich. Okay, so what do we do? What's the solution from here? And the solution always starts with the individual, inside the heart of the individual. This is how I read this message. It has to start from there.
It has to start from there. It has to start from the honesty inside of you. You have to analyze yourself. When you think you are like, you're ready to talk and to speak out, then you can do. But first of all, it's a work that you have to do on your own, inside yourself, in your like kind of like, you know, soul type of soul searching type of.
And in order to do that, you have to read Divine Comedy.
Exactly.
That's the solution.
Yes, because, you know, honestly, I need to say, Tom, every time I have a doubt, I read the Divine Comedy, I have the answer. It's weird, but this is what happens to me. I'm like, this is what I needed to know. I needed to hear today. Dante
it's just a huge work, and it's not an easy work, but the more you learn about it, the more it really gives you the answer, gives you the solution, and the strength also to not give up and to continue going.
Exactly. And it's beautiful. I mean, when I read this Terzina, I kind of like, I'm like, I can't believe he actually wrote it. 118 to 120.
Yeah, please read it.
E se io al vero son timido amico, so if I'm a timid friend of truth, temo di perder viver tra coloro che questo tempo chiameranno antico. So I fear that I may lose my life among those who will call this present ancient times. He's talking to me.
It's us. That's us. Yeah.
So, like, he got it. He actually, he could talk to me because he told the truth. He was honest. And this is just, it gives me chills every time. Che questo tempo chiameranno antico. This is me, this is you all listening to this podcast. You know?
Look, not even in the scriptures, I think somebody was so imaginative to project his imagination so far in the future and to put themselves in the shoes of saying, you know, today is ancient time for that person. It's almost like Isaac Asimov, like one of the science fiction masters.
Yeah.
That's the power of imagination that Dante has.
Don't you feel like Dante's finger coming out of the page? Questo te, like you is pointing at me. It's like he's breaking
Right.
the wall of the paper. It's just, I don't know, it's reaching me. That's it. That's I think like encapsulates Dante's magic. The way he can talk to us, he can be relevant, he can grab us physically, like in this way, and he talks through sense.
And probably at this point in time, having arrived to Canto 17 of Paradiso, he knew how great a job he was doing with this Divine Comedy. He knew that in the centuries, people would have still, maybe he was hoping, okay, but he was also conscious and aware of his poetic powers. And, you know, you just look at this thing. It's just who else wrote something like this in history?
I totally agree. Yes.
Wow. This is, I mean, I think we went through it in its most important highlights. So I thank you so much. I feel like there is an intensity about this canto that you really helped me, you know, address and diffuse, because if I'm by myself only talking about a canto like this, I'm a little intimidated, but
together we can, you know, we can grab stuff out of the canto, and you know, we enrich ourselves with this.
And also there is always this feeling of objective inferiority, intellectual inferiority towards Dante, because every time I put myself my brain in comparison to Dante's, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I'm just I'm here, you are there, and I'm trying, because he knows everything about me. He knows everything about me. He's close. He's here. He says, I know how you look at me from 2022.
Yes.
I know very little about him, you know. It's a difference. But
you know, people study Divine Comedy all their life and they couldn't grasp everything. It's just but that's the beauty of this book, you know. It's just, it keeps talking to us every time we read it, and it gives us different advice for our life. It's just a magic book, I would call it. I know it's kind of like, it's not even grasping everything, but it's an incredible book.
Yeah. And I'm also happy that you brought into the video an important thought for Ukraine and what's happening there. Today we're recording is the 26th of March of 2022. So we don't know what's going to happen, but obviously it's a fitting example of displacement, involuntary displacement of people. And so we certainly, you know, give a thought to that situation and to all those people. And I thank you so much, Chiara. It's always a great pleasure to have you on and talk about the Divine Comedy. Remember, once I get to the end, I'm going to start from the beginning again. So it's never ending.
It's a never-ending loop, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Tom, for inviting me. And talking about the Divine Comedy just makes my day. I just love it. It's wonderful. And yeah, see you next time.
See you next time. Thank you. Thank you for watching, everybody.
Ciao, ciao.